Welcome to the Scenario Podcast, your guide to mental health and well-being. Each episode, we uncover practical tools, discuss expert insights, and explore how supplements can transform your mental health journey. Get ready to learn, grow, and thrive with us.
You know that feeling, right? Your mind's just racing, thoughts bouncing everywhere. Or maybe it's that knot in your stomach, that tension you can't shake. We've all felt anxiety. It's part of being human. But when it starts really running the show, making decisions for you, that's when you look for ways to get back in charge.
Exactly. And when anxiety feels less like a brief visitor and more like it's moved in, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, gives you a really structured, evidence-backed way to deal with it. It's really about understanding what's going on under the hood, so to speak, and getting some practical skills to handle those anxious feelings.
Okay, CBT. So it's not just, sitting on a couch talking endlessly. Our source material for today, which is called 10 Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Exercises for Anxiety, really focuses on the therapy part, meaning doing. It's about actual tools.
That's right. Understanding helps, of course, but CBT is very much action-oriented. It's about identifying those specific thought patterns, maybe behaviors too, that tend to crank up the anxiety dial. And then, crucially, learning new, healthier ways to respond. The goal isn't just a Band-Aid, it's building skills that last.
And that's what we're getting into today, understanding these concrete techniques. Think of this as a bit of a shortcut, maybe, to figuring out these 10 exercises and how they can really help you manage anxiety better long-term. So 10 exercises, that's quite a few. Where's a good place to start?
Well, a really solid starting point is often something called the thought record worksheet. Basically, its main job is to help you see those automatic negative thoughts, the ones that pop up and fuel anxiety. It helps you spot them, but also evaluate them, see how much water they actually hold.
Okay, a worksheet. So let's say I get a sudden urgent request at work and I feel that anxiety spike. What do I actually do?
So the first thing is to describe that situation. Just the facts, Received urgent email from boss at 4 p.m. Then you write down the thoughts that immediately came to mind. Don't filter them, just get them down. Like maybe you thought, oh no, I'm going to fail at this, or they'll think I'm incompetent.
Right, those lovely inner critics.
Yeah.
Always so helpful. So I've got the situation, I've got the automatic thoughts, now what?
Then you rate how much you believed each thought in that moment. Maybe use a 0 to 100% scale. This helps you see which thoughts are hitting hardest. After that, you look for cognitive distortions. These are like common thinking traps our minds fall into. They twist reality a bit.
Thinking traps? Like what?
Well, common ones are catastrophizing, instantly jumping to the worst possible outcome. Or black and white thinking, seeing things as all good or all bad, no middle ground. And mind reading is another big one, assuming you know what others are thinking, and it's usually negative about you. Just spotting these patterns is a huge step.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the mind reading one. Assuming judgment where there might be none.
Okay, so I've identified a thought, rated it, maybe spotted a distortion. What's next on the worksheet?
Now for the really constructive part. Evidence. You ask yourself, what facts actually support this thought? Be honest. But then, just as importantly, what facts contradict this thought? This forces you to step outside your feelings and look at, reality. Based on that evidence check, you craft a more balanced, realistic alternative thought.
Okay. So replacing the initial knee-jerk reaction with something more considered.
Exactly. And then you go back and re-rate how much you believe that original negative thought. Often, just going through this process significantly dials down its intensity. You're essentially fact-checking your anxiety.
That sounds incredibly useful, like bringing logic to an emotional fight. What's another exercise from the list?
Another really powerful one involves getting out there and doing things. It's called behavioral experiments. The idea here is to actively test out how accurate your anxiety-driven beliefs actually are. You put them to the test in the real world. Okay, I like the sound of that. Less internal analysis, more action. How does it work in practice?
You start by identifying a specific belief that causes anxiety. The source uses the example, if I speak up in a meeting, I'll make a fool of myself.
Right, a common fear.
Then you make a specific prediction. What exactly do you think will happen if you speak up? Maybe people will ignore my point or I'll stumble over my words.
Okay, got the belief, got the prediction.
Yeah.
Then comes the scary part.
Then comes the experiment. You actually do the thing. You speak up in the meeting, even if your heart's pounding. Afterwards, you observe very carefully what actually happened. Did people roll their eyes? Did you completely blank compare the reality to your prediction? Often, the outcome is nowhere near as bad as you feared.
So you're gathering your own data to challenge the fear.
Precisely. And that reflection step is vital. Did the prediction come true? How bad was the actual result compared to the anticipated catastrophe? This kind of learning through direct experience is incredibly potent for changing those beliefs.
It makes sense. You're building evidence against the anxiety by living through it. Okay, so we can challenge thoughts with records, test beliefs with experiments. What about those deeper, habitual negative thought patterns?
Yeah, the ones that feel like they just run on autopilot in the background. That's where cognitive restructuring is really helpful. It's aimed at modifying those broader, unhelpful thinking styles.
How is that different from the thought record then? Seems similar.
It is related, but the thought record often links to a specific triggering event. Cognitive restructuring is more about tackling those recurring negative thoughts whenever they pop up. You identify an anxious thought, and then you start asking some key questions to really pick it apart.
Okay, like what kind of questions?
Things like, what's the actual evidence for this thought? What's the evidence against it? Really dig for facts. Am I jumping to conclusions here, or is this based on facts? Also, what are the possible outcomes? The best, the worst, and importantly, the most realistic and a really useful one. Is there any other way I could look at this situation?
It sounds like training yourself to be a more objective observer of your own mind.
That's a great way to put it. You're using these questions to see the thought from different angles, spot the biases. Then, based on that analysis, you consciously reframe the thought. So the example given is shifting from I'm definitely going to fail this to something more like, okay, this is tough, but I've prepared and I'll do my best. It changes the feeling around it.
That little shift in perspective can make such a difference, can't it? From certainty of doom to, well, possibility.
Absolutely. It's about intentionally replacing those anxiety-fueling thoughts with more rational, supportive self-talk.
Now, a lot of anxiety involves avoiding things, right? Facing fears feels huge. How does CBT approach that? It sounds daunting.
It does sound daunting, which is why CBT uses a technique called exposure hierarchies. And the key word there is hierarchy. It's all about gradual steps.
Gradual. Okay, that sounds more manageable than just diving in.
Yeah.
How does it work?
First, you make a list of situations or things that trigger your anxiety. Then you rank them, maybe on that 0-100 scale again, from a little bit anxious to terrifying.
So if someone fears dogs, maybe seeing a picture of a dog is low down. Being in the same room as a big dog off leash is way up high.
Exactly like that. You create your personal fear ladder. Then you start with the item that causes the least anxiety. You deliberately expose yourself to that situation repeatedly. And you stay with it until the anxiety naturally starts to decrease. This is crucial. You learn that the anxiety does eventually fade.
And you don't move up the ladder until you feel relatively okay with that lower step.
That's the process, step by step. You only move to the next item when the current one feels significantly less daunting. It works because avoidance keeps anxiety strong. By gradually facing the feared situations, you weaken that connection between the situation and the anxious response. You're retraining your brain.
It's like building tolerance over time. Makes sense. What else is in the toolkit?
Another technique, which might seem simple but is really effective, is journaling, just writing things down.
Like a diary, keeping track of your day.
It can be, but in a CBT context, it's a bit more focused. You write about experiences, sure, but specifically pay attention to anxiety triggers. What set it off? What were your emotions? What thoughts were running through your head? You use the journal to look for patterns, recurring negative thoughts, common triggers, maybe those cognitive distortions we talked about.
So using the writing to become more aware of your own patterns.
Exactly. And it also gives you a space to reflect. Could I have interpreted that situation differently? What's a more helpful way I could respond next time? It encourages that self-reflection and processing.
I can see how that would help bring things out of the emotional fog and into clearer view. The source also mentioned mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, MBCT. How does mindfulness fit in?
Right, MBCT. It essentially weaves mindfulness practices right into the CBT framework. The main aim is to help you become less reactive to your thoughts and feelings and more anchored in the present moment.
Less reactive. How? What kind of mindfulness stuff are we talking about?
Things like focusing on your breath, just noticing the inhale and exhale. Or doing a body scan, bringing awareness to different parts of your body, noticing sensations without judging them. Or even just mindfully observing your surroundings, paying attention to sights and sounds without getting lost in thought about them.
And what happens when anxious thoughts pop up during this? Because they probably will.
They definitely will. The practice isn't to stop them, but to notice them, acknowledge them, like, there's that worry thought again. But you don't engage with it, don't follow it down the rabbit hole. You gently guide your attention back to anchor your breath or your body. It creates a bit of space.
So you're learning to observe your thoughts without automatically getting swept away by them, developing a different relationship with them.
Precisely. You see them as mental events, not necessarily facts or commands to panic. That non-reactive stance is really powerful against anxiety.
Okay, but what if the anxiety isn't just thoughts, but it's linked to, like, actual problems in my life?
Yeah.
Job stress, relationship issues.
That's a really important point. CBT absolutely addresses that too, through problem-solving skills training. This is focused on tackling those external stressors contributing to anxiety.
How does that work? Is it just making a to-do list?
It's more structured than that. First, you define the problem really clearly and specifically. Break it down if it's big. Then you brainstorm all potential solutions, even wacky ones initially. Just get ideas flowing. Next, you evaluate each option. What are the pros and cons? What's feasible? Based on that, you choose the best approach, or maybe a combination. Then you make a concrete step-by-step action plan. And finally, you implement the plan and then review how it went. Did it work? Does it need tweaking?
It sounds very methodical, taking the overwhelm out of big problems by breaking them down logically.
Exactly. It combats that feeling of helplessness that often comes with big stressors. It gives you a process, a way to actively tackle things rather than just worrying about them.
Now, another one mentioned was graded task assignment. That sounds a bit like the exposure hierarchy.
It does share that core principle of breaking things down and gradual progression, you're right. But graded task assignment is specifically focused on tasks you're avoiding because they make you anxious.
Okay. Tasks, not just situations, like maybe avoiding making an important phone call or starting a big project.
Perfect examples. You pick an avoided task. Then you break it down into the smallest possible steps. Tiny steps. You do the very first step, maybe just looking up the phone number. Then, and this is important, you acknowledge you did it, maybe give yourself a little credit or reward. Then you move to the next tiny step, like drafting what you'll say. You progress slowly, step by step, building momentum and confidence.
So it makes overwhelming tasks feel less, overwhelming by tackling them bit by bit, reduces that initial hurdle of just starting.
Precisely. Avoidance feeds fear. Taking small, manageable actions builds tolerance and proves to yourself that you can do it.
We're almost through the list. What are the last couple?
Number 9 is Socratic questioning. This is another way to really dig into and challenge those unhelpful beliefs, using questions to guide your own thinking.
Feels like we've talked about questions a lot with cognitive restructuring, too. How is this different?
It's very related, yes. Think of Socratic questioning as a specific technique, often used within cognitive restructuring. You hone in on one particular negative thought that's causing distress. Then you ask yourself those probing questions. What's the evidence for this thought? What's the evidence against it? But also things like, is there another way to see this? And the classic one, what would I tell a friend if they had this thought?
Right, the friend question. It always helps create that distance and compassion we often don't give ourselves.
It really does. It forces perspectives. Socratic questioning is about stimulating that deeper reflection, using logic and different viewpoints to arrive at a more balanced, realistic thought.
Okay, and the final one. Number 10.
The last one brings things together nicely. Relaxation techniques with thought awareness. Here, you combine physical relaxation with the cognitive skills we've been discussing.
How did that work? Relaxing while thinking about anxious thoughts sounds tricky.
Well, you start with the relaxation first. Choose a technique that works for you: deep breathing, maybe progressive muscle relaxation where you tense and release muscles, or visualization, picturing a calm place. As you start to feel physically calmer, you don't try to block thoughts. You just allow them to drift in. If anxious thoughts surface, you notice them. And then, gently, from that calmer state, you might apply a CBT strategy. Maybe identify a distortion in the thought, or evaluate the evidence for it, or gently reframe it.
I see. So you're lowering the physical anxiety response first, which makes it easier to then engage with the thoughts more calmly and rationally.
Exactly. You're tackling anxiety on both the physical and cognitive levels simultaneously, which can really boost your sense of control in the moment.
Wow. Okay, that's a really comprehensive toolkit. It's definitely clear that CBT isn't passive. It's about awareness, but also very much about active changing thoughts, changing behaviors.
That really captures it. It's this dynamic mix, understanding yourself better, adjusting how you act, and using specific strategies to manage your thoughts and feelings. These 10 exercises offer concrete ways to do that.
And it sounds like, as the source suggests, practice is key. These aren't one-time fixes.
Absolutely not. Like learning any new skill, whether it's playing an instrument or a sport, repetition makes it stronger and more automatic. Practicing these techniques regularly, maybe starting small, is what makes them truly effective over time.
It really empowers you, the listener, to take an active role in managing anxiety.
It really does. It moves you from feeling overwhelmed by anxiety to feeling equipped to respond to it differently.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe take a moment to think about these 10 exercises. Did one or two particularly stand out to you? Perhaps one that seems like it might fit a challenge you're facing. You could even think back to the last time you felt anxious. Looking back now, how might one of these tools, maybe just identifying the automatic thought, or trying some deep breathing, or even asking, what's the evidence? How might that have shifted the experience, even slightly? Playing around with these, experimenting, that could be your first step toward really understanding and managing your anxiety in a new way.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scenario Podcast. Don't forget to visit scenario.com for more expert tips, articles, and supplements designed to support your mental health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of yourself.